Well, at first I was one of the people who was a bit frustrated with the interdisciplinary modules because I was really expecting to just jump into psychology. Coming in, changed my perspective quite a bit because it's actually interesting.
All right, welcome to our very special podcast. I just wanted to see how some of our students are doing. And you guys have just done a huge survey for us as well. And we are coming quite close to the midway point already. It's already weeks 5 and 6 already. I just want to make sure that I catch up with some of my students and then I immediately arrow one of my tutors to help me find a few students. Maybe the two of you can very briefly introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Jing Xuan. I'm from psychology and I'm thinking of minoring in life sciences.
Hi, I'm Yi Hao. I'm from the life sciences. And I'm also planning to minor in forensic sciences. Yeah.
Hey, let's start talking about how has the class been so far.
It's actually quite fun. When I stepped into NUS, I didn't really think so much about the human condition and all that. I didn't expect that there would be a module for this in the first place because CHS is so new, right? But this module has really challenged me to think about morality and all the other things that makes us human. And the readings are actually really interesting.
Can I just check on this? Do you have an arts background or was it a science background that you came from?
Kind of a hybrid background because I'm not sure what constitutes as hybrid actually. I was in a science stream in JC, but I didn't take econs, I took lit.
Okay, so you do have a little bit of you do have lit background. Okay. So Yi Hao, what about you? How has the class been treating you so far?
It's been very interesting also. Yeah, because I think because it's year 1 in CHS, so I didn't really know what to expect also, to be honest. Yeah, but overall it's been pretty smooth sailing, I say. I think the interesting thing about this module is that because it's not really like a pure humanities module, so to speak. It's like a hybrid module. I think it fuses like some aspects of the humanities together, which is very interesting. It's very different from what I've experienced in secondary school and in JC as well.
I'm going to guess that you have a science background in JC?
Yeah, I was from the science stream. But in secondary school, I pursued pure history and an elective English lit. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe that does help a little bit. Back to you, Jing Xuan.
Tutorials have been fun. Thank you, Nick. And yeah, all the breakout rooms and the discussions have been really, really, really fun because everyone has something to say regarding the issue of omelas and what Gandhi has to say. And outside of class, I actually have friends who I talk to as well. I'm not sure if you know this, but this about the group chat where there are a lot of students, HSH students in it. Every time there's a quiz or like there's something we don't understand, or during lectures, we just spam the group chat and ask for people's opinions. And I think that's really fun to be able to talk to people beyond the classroom, beyond your own tutorial groups and your
I think it's quite lovely because WhatsApp groups, Telegram groups, they weren't quite a thing when I was a student. And I think a lot more, it makes me sound like a dinosaur. But in some sense I am, compared to the both of you. I think that these avenues...
Hello.
Yeah.
You make me feel very, okay.
No, but it's true, right? So these avenues, they make it really, convenient for us to extend conversations, beyond the classroom. And I think that, if you make full use of these means, I think they really help learning. Yeah.
I know about the existence of those chat groups and I try my best not to be anywhere close to them.
Why not?
I feel as if I'm going to be overwhelmed. There's just too many of you.
That's true. There are hundreds of messages at once.
Yeah. But don't get me wrong. I do belong to chat groups like that. Not in this class, right? So it can be quite fun, but it can be a little bit annoying also because, if exciting things are happening, you're like being disturbed all the time. Yeah. Yi Hao, what about you? Any more things about, how has the class been so far?
I agree with the readings part. The readings are very, very interesting because I'll admit I'm not a very well-read person. So I think the reading so far is helped to expand what I've been reading. Especially I think Omelas is like a very philosophical, ethical kind of reading, which I don't think I've ever read before. And then, comes Gandhi, which is a completely different genre. And then now we're studying Gilgamesh, which is again very different. So yeah, so it's a little overwhelming, but it's like a good kind of overwhelming. Yeah.
Do you think the readings are hard?
It's okay. I think the guiding questions are useful because they really help me to structure my reading, help me to really understand what's going on in the story. Then there's also like online resources like Spark Notes, which I can refer to get a gist of the story if I'm ever unsure lah. Yeah.
Yo.
In fact, sometimes I tell my students that, Wikipedia is not a bad place to begin, right? But begin is the word, and Wikipedia actually is a good source of references. They sometimes point you to more scholarly sources, which is what you should be aiming for if you're a university student.
I'm very two-minded about this. I do like it when students go on to read more things. I do like it. Don't get me wrong. I'm also very mindful. I don't want this class to be about whether or not people are running off to read stuff. I want them to be reading this particular thing we tell them to and think hard about it and discuss, right? It's not that you shouldn't read other things. You should always be reading things. You don't go and read those other things because you want to do well here, but because you just love to read stuff. You should always do that. But in our class, actually, even if you just stick to what we assign you, you're good. So do you find that the readings, do you feel like the readings were hard?
Not really. I think I mentioned this sometime in one of Nick's tutorials recently about Hind Swaraj. So I kind of got confused because I kept having to refer back to the text, like the text before that, because I get a bit overwhelmed by the sheer volume of ideas that are flowing in and that we have to process. But it's ultimately manageable as long as you take your time. I think a lot of people might feel a bit stressed when reading the readings because they sometimes either do it last minute or they just read through trying to plow through the reading and they just want to get it done and over with and they don't want to think too much about it. But I don't think that's what the module is requiring of us.
Yeah, no, I mean, we give you a lot of time. It's like 2-week cycles, so, but it is, no, there's a part of me that does worry a little bit about whether or not some of the readings are a bit long. So don't even get the idea that somehow Prof Loy never agonize over such things. We totally agonize over it in our team meetings, okay? But on balance, we do believe that you students can do this. It's something that is doable, but it's a grand experiment for us also, it is. And we also recognize that Gandhi was written a while back, even though he wasn't writing in a very difficult way. The language is a little bit old-fashioned, but I think that with a little bit of time and a little bit of patience, is okay, right? And then of course the lectures are going to guide you and the tutorials are going to guide you anyway. Yeah. But what about the quizzes? Have the quizzes been really hard? Yeah, have you found the quizzes infuriating or what?
A bit tricky lah. I say the phrasing is a bit tricky in some of the options.
Yeah.
So it takes a while. You have to read through it over and over just to make sure you're getting it right. I think because I just did quiz 2 today, I think it took me about 2 hours just to go through everything.
It is meant to be a 2-week cycle, so don't have to rush everything. You can always do a few questions and come back to it another few days. Jing Xuan, do you find the quizzes very hard?
They are average for me, but I know for some other students, they're also quite difficult because the concepts are just very new. And then you don't think about claims as normative or descriptive every day in your everyday life. I think it's a bit hard to grasp, but overall, with a lot of practice, I think it should be fine. Which also brings me to the point of a bit more practice, I guess, being done in tutorials or lectures where we have such new concepts coming in. Yeah, I think yesterday we had a tutorial and then Nick gave us the assignment. Yeah, on doing the source and target domains for metaphors and all that. And that was quite useful.
Yeah, I got a feeling that we will end up re-evaluating which exercises we want to do for the tutorials, right? So it's very important. So make sure you all give us all this kind of feedback, right? Okay, so we have a first idea. We think it's going to work, but you got to, that plans are all great, but they meet reality, and then then we have to make sure that we take that feedback and that our observation and fine-tune accordingly. But I think it's kind of working. But I do feel the sense of when people say that there should be more practice, I do feel it because that actually coheres with my thinking as well in terms of what I want, right? If it means rejigging the tutorials in a particular way.
There are 2 parts to the tutorials. One is the skills part, and that's what these exercises are meant to reinforce. We will be doing students, I think, a disservice if we did not convey these things. But the other part, I think, is the fun part. It's also, important. You can't forget about it, which is, I think, reflection on the big questions, right? Which is very much a part of the humanities. I think, like I mentioned in the first tutorial. So I think I really hope that you go away with both of these things, right? You're not just thinking about the big questions, but I think thinking about them in a disciplined way, in a way that applies, I think, your full faculties, right? And that's how I think people over the ages have done it, right? They brought everything they had to bear, right? All their intellectual and emotional resources to bear on these questions. And I think that's what we are aiming for.
Yeah. And don't just stop within this module. You go back to psychology, you go to life sciences. I hope that some of these things are with you, and you don't have to think of it as a humanities thing. I'm sure that you'll be doing your own research, you'll be doing whatever else you're doing, right? I hope that you, in a sense, thanks to us, you cannot unsee the things that you have seen already. And that you have been broadened and made a more interesting person, as I like to put it. So this is more, especially for science and science background students, right? Is this kind of what you expected coming in? So both of you already said you didn't know what to expect. But maybe let's expand a little bit on that, especially Yi Hao, because you did come from a kind of a science background in JC, and then you are in a very, very science major right now. Any words of advice for other fellow science students? And likewise, is this what you expected? Anything that we can improve?
I think in general, it's just important to be more open about learning different disciplines. Yeah, I just need to be open. I think the important part of uni is like learning. It's not really so much focus on knowledge, like not really knowledge per se, but it's more like just the learning process in general. Like the way this module is taught is very different from previous experiences. Like in JC, in secondary school, is very rote learning style, but currently it's a more open discourse. So I think it's good. It helps students to maybe stay engaged and be more interested in the topics being taught. Yeah.
So one of the caricatures, or perhaps is a stereotype, right, of science students is that they actually find this intimidating precisely because it's open-ended, or there's a part of it that's open-ended, right? So sometimes we hear that it's a caricature of a science student that we want to know what the answer is so that I can give it back to you in the exam. I don't actually believe that's true. I'll just say that first, because I have taught many science students in my time here, whether in the main faculty or in the USP or whatever. And it's not true that the science students are all like this. As a science student yourself, do you find what you're learning here strange and somehow incoherent with what you're doing as a science student? Or is it something that complements it? Or how does it work actually? I'm just curious now.
But I think, as you said, is learning, different disciplines helps us become more multifaceted as a whole. Like we become, more complete people. I think that's also good.
So I don't expect modules like that to complement the majors in the literal sense. Like, you go back and take some life science module and then somehow you're looking for metaphors. That'll be quite strange. I'll talk to my neighbor here who is a life science person here and say, what are you guys doing? What are you right? But I think complement in a broader sense, right? Like the sense that you are talking about, to make sure that you come out as a kind of graduate who is a little bit more multifaceted, a more complete person, right? I hope that makes you a better life science person actually, right? As a scientist, for instance, as a researcher, as a person who is out there doing things. But not necessarily because I'm helping you learn the life science. I think that would be very strange. Does that make sense? Do you feel like we can do this, or is this too much to ask?
Yeah, that makes sense. Generally, I think the point of these interdisciplinary modules is just to help you become a bit more open-minded in general, and to be more accepting of other points of view, especially in the humanities, because everyone has different ideas and points of view, right? So I think it can be applied to the life sciences, maybe like in research.
Yeah, you're not so caught up with, in a singular point of view and forget that there are people who disagree, and there could be really good reasons why they disagree. And even if you believe that you're right, it may be a good idea to sort of be the kind of mind space and the kind of attitude that says that, okay, we're going to hear them out. We're going to think very carefully why they think the way they do, and so on and so forth. Jing Xuan, I know that you have so-called a hybrid background. I don't know whether you have anything to say about this, sort of words for our science classmates of yours.
Okay, I do have friends who are in the science stream who are also a bit frustrated because they are not used to this kind of thinking. But yeah, as you said, it's important to have an interdisciplinary, more holistic education, because it's going to be applied in future as like soft skills, that kind of thing. Not necessarily directly in the industry that you are pursuing, but more of how you interact with people, how you think about things, because this module makes us think. Yi Hao said before, JC was secondary school and JC was very rote memorization work. In uni, it's a completely different experience. It makes you think more about the things that you're doing instead of asking for answers. When you go into the future and you have this kind of mindset, you're trained to have this kind of mindset to slow down and think about the things you're doing, think about the bigger questions in life that matter more than just how to put food on the table the next day.
Do y'all like to cook? You don't know lah. I like to cook, but I'm too busy to do any cooking until it's the holidays. Yeah. I mean, obviously you don't have to convince me of this. I actually think that it's even closer to home than people realize. It is in the careers actually. Once you're past your first job, trust me, you won't be able to escape this. The people who stay long term, the people who actually do well, are often the people who know how to connect with other people, be able to approximate their points of view, who are empathetic, who understand how is it that differences can arise, but nonetheless, no one needs to get angry, and who appreciates the bigger questions, right? But let me catch up on one thing that you mentioned, because I do hear this, and in a sense, I don't know how to feel about it, that learning in JC and secondary school is still very rote. I actually find it a little bit hard to believe, I must say, because I do have friends who are JC teachers and secondary school teachers, and I know that they try very hard to make sure that we don't just do this. But at the same time, I hear this all the time. So I'm really wondering what's going on. Is it just that students are not really at the correct age group for them to be doing this extra thing yet? Or what's going on, really?
I mean, there's a lot of getting into the mindsets of markers overseas who are marking your A-level papers. We are trained to think like these markers and write in the style that these markers want. They want to see a certain style, a certain sentence structure, a certain, let's say, certain keywords that you have to have in your essay or your answers, no matter what. Yeah, that's part of the rote memorization. I mean, of course, in places like GP, general paper, you have a lot of space to discuss in the classroom. And the GP teacher isn't supposed to shoot down your ideas, but rather facilitate discussion, just like in uni. But it's because it's just a one subject that allows you to do this kind of thing. Most of JC life is more studying. How do you translate 死读 into English? Dead reading, rote memorization, really. And the fact there's so many TYS papers, so the 10-year series papers and all that we are encouraged to keep doing until prelims, until A-levels, and even for O-levels as well. And the fact that you have to do this so early on is scary, because you're trained to think a certain way. And instead of being told that, hey, you have your own agency, you can think a certain way.
Thanks. Okay, but again, kind of in defense of my friends who are JC teachers, including my ex-students, I think they will agree with you in the aims. I think they will also like very much that their students are not just memorizing. But I suspect that it's harder to do than it may appear at first sight, especially at the JC level. Okay, so what do you guys enjoy the most, the least, and what else do you think we should do? Yi Hao, the things that you like and the things you don't like, and wish list. Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the open discussion in general. Like, for example, in lectures with the PoEV, you can see the word cloud, you can see what people are thinking is very interesting. And then in tutorials, we go into breakout rooms and you can discuss with our peers. I think that's also quite unique. It's very different from what I've experienced prior in JC and in secondary school. And I think it's very important in the humanities, because it's important to be open to what people are thinking, be open and listen to what people have to say. Yeah.
Jing Xuan, yeah.
I'm a big fan of the group discussion summaries, but this could be maybe because I have a good group, and I've heard from friends whose members may not be as vocal and they don't really put forth their ideas as easily as others do. And that's a challenge, because what you want in a group discussion summary is everyone's ideas coming in. I mean, that's how you summarize a lot of people's ideas and answer a single question together. And you want a lot of perspectives, but it's difficult when you don't have the people coming to contribute, because either they're scared to voice their opinions or they're just not used to this.
Yeah, we agonize over that, by the way, because it's not that we don't understand the challenges of group work, right? We have plenty of data for years and years already about how people both like and dislike group work. So finding the right balance to make sure that it's sufficiently low stakes and designed in the right way is not easy. And then the other one is we also struggle. Do we want to allow people to form their own groups, or do we want to pre-allocate? And all these different considerations. We pre-allocated for a very simple reason. We want to make sure that even the ones who came in here without any friends already have a group. There's no question. But it does mean that there's a lot of luck of the draw. Lah. And there's also a limit to our social engineering because there are quite a lot of science students. So just by random chance, some groups are going to be all science students. It's very hard. It's very hard. But I think that with a little bit of time and patience, it will work. Right? One discussion, maybe the first round is still a little bit hard, but second round, third round, you'll be better, right? But I'm happy to hear that you are having you sound like you're having a good time the GDS.
Yeah, I am. I mean, I'm very fortunate to have good group members.
Yeah.
I think from the point of view of a tutor, and I have the privilege of sometimes dropping by the breakout rooms and taking a look at the discussions. And of course, I read all the group discussion summaries because I have to mark them. I think my encouragement for the both of you and of course for everybody is that, we need everybody to contribute. This is only going to work if all of us contribute. I think the group discussions are made richer because people think hard about these issues and, you have every voice on the page, right? So the better group discussion summaries so far that I have read, you can really see the students engaging with each other. So it's not just I say A and then you say B and then the third person says C, right? But it's more like the first person says A, the second person builds on A, right? And then the third person says, what about not A, right? So it's really like there's a thread going through, and that is one of the great advantages of having a group. And I think one of the very, very important aspects of university learning.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Some of my best memories of life as a student, many years ago, was actually in our own private discussions. We just form our own study groups and, argue with each other, sometimes until late at night. Don't ask me how that happened. But
interestingly, I had the same experience myself, right? So I had a group of friends. It's an informal group, right? It's not as if we were put together for any class. Maybe some of us met in modules that we took together. But in the end, we just kind of like a ragtag bunch. Some people majoring in political science, some in history, right? Some philosophy, and some, none of those disciplines. And what we did was just, after school is done, right, go for dinner. After dinner, we just hung out and we spoke for hours. And that's how a lot of learning got done. And I don't think a lot of people realize this, but, class time is very precious. Class time is also very, very short, right? But outside of class, you have all the time in the world and you have the space, right? The distance to think about some of the things that were shared in class. And I really hope that students take the group discussion summary as a platform for, starting a discussion like this, right? Something that's more free form, but something that you can sort of use your imagination to explore, right? At length, the issues that are important.
Just make sure you obey the social distancing rules.
I think right now a lot of these kinds of discussions will be on Zoom or Skype, that kind of thing. So it should be fine.
Yeah, but we really should move back once it's possible. So we'll see, right? What else do you think we can do? But maybe it's too early to ask, I don't know. But even if you don't have anything now, help us imagine new possibilities and tell us. I'm not saying that I'm going to accept everything. I won't be doing my job if I just do whatever you all tell me to, okay, But sometimes students will give you an idea that makes you think about it and say, hey, actually there's a way to do this and there's a way to make it work for us too. So I don't know whether you all have any special wish list items. Too early.
Yeah, too early.
But end of semester, tell us really. The final survey we do, definitely tell us these sort of things. Some of the things that we're doing now, in a way, can be traced back to student feedback. And I don't mean like official student feedback. I mean like people who even just came to my office and say, Prof, why don't we do this instead? Then at first I was like, seriously, really? Then we sat down and talk a little bit about it and say, yeah, actually we can do this, right? It doesn't happen too often, but it really does happen. And those things get absorbed into the classes I teach. By the way, the very idea of a group discussion summary came from a student who once worked for me as a TA. And she was still an undergraduate at the time. And, we were trying to brainstorm an idea about a group thing. This is a class I was teaching in the USP at the time, right? So she was one of my TAs and she came up with the idea and we ran with it. And it turned out to be one of my favorite modes of assessment. Not really assessment. It's really a platform to get the students to talk to each other more than anything else. Yeah. How is CHS treating you so far?
Yeah, I can go first. Yeah, I mean, Okay, it's definitely a very unique experience, I would say. I think it's very different from my friends from other faculties, what they're doing. For example, like I think the key thing is in year one, actually, we have quite a fair bit of interdisciplinary modules to tackle. So I think this is in some sense, it's kind of like a good segue into what uni life really is about.
Ah,
And yeah, it helps to kind of like let us acclimatize into uni life a little better. That's how I feel, because for my friends in other faculties, I mean, year one straight away just kind of like throw into the deep end with a lot of essential modules, and it might be a bit hard for them to acclimatize, but meanwhile in CHS, I think the way everything is structured is helping us to kind of ease into uni life a little better, which is very ideal.
but what if someone were to say that, but I want to do my major immediately, right? But you're not allowing me to do my major immediately. So I maybe want to expand a bit on that, because no, I do agree with you, but I have my own reasons. I'm thinking more from the point of view of an educator, right? But I'm actually curious, how do students think about this? Don't they want to do major immediately?
I mean, there's always a UE option available for year one if they want to pursue more of their major, essential modules. That option is there. I mean, I do understand that frustration, because a lot of people, they come to uni, they plan to do something that they're really interested in, and so this might be a bit off-putting, but I think in the long run is actually a good thing, because these kind of modules, they help us develop as people in general, and give us like a more holistic view of the world as a whole. Yeah, so I think is beneficial. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that. But I totally get the challenge, because I think that in general, Singaporean students are quite goal-oriented, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? If you come here with a particular thing to do, and then we're telling you, sorry, you cannot do that yet. Please do it. These other things first. Of course, people are going to be a little bit unhappy, right? But we really mean business when we say that no, this will benefit you, right? And we will scaffold it. We'll make sure that this is something that you can do, right? You're not going to be disadvantaged. So I'm really heartened to hear from Yi Hao, hear that the way you think is in fact consistent with the way we would prefer. But of course, we also understand the challenge, of course, right? Yeah. Do you have any classmates who talk about this?
I have a friend who's in farm science, and he's also a bit frustrated about the all these interdisciplinary modules at first, but over time he's actually grown to kind of enjoy the modules also. I think the good thing is because the way these modules are structured is they're very accessible to students with minimal humanities backgrounds. I mean, like for example, like the guiding questions and the concepts taught in lectures, they're simplified to a way that's easy for everyone to understand. It's not very abstract, which I think is very crucial for keeping students focused and like keeping them interested in whatever's being taught. Yeah.
But they're also not super duper easy, because we try to explain simply, then we still make sure that you have to do the quiz to really get down to understanding, right? Actually, I'm just curious, it's sort of like a side question. Do you all find the content easy?
Okay, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I didn't really come in expecting much from the module also, so there isn't really much for me to say with regards to this. Yeah.
Okay. I don't want this to feel too easy. I need people to feel like they're being worked.
Yeah, it's uni after all.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's not meant to be easy, but I do intend to be accessible, which is a different story. What about you, Jing Xuan? Yeah.
Well, at first I was one of the people who was a bit frustrated with all the little interdisciplinary modules and all that, because I was really expecting to just jump into psychology, do the stuff, just really do it, and get a head start, that kind of thing. But then CHS rolled around and it's like, oh, okay, now I have to do a whole bunch of modules that aren't related. But I think coming in changed my perspective quite a bit, because it's actually interesting. And yeah, I may have a science background and all that, and with like minimal lit stuff, because I've only taken lit for 2 years in JC. But otherwise, it's actually quite fun. It's like you all said, it's very accessible. Like, it's definitely not easy, because you still have to think your way through the questions. You're given a group discussion summary questions, and you still have to think of the examples and all the little nuances and the conditions that make the questions answerable, because the questions are very open-ended. You need a lot of perspectives to look at it. In the end, it's fun. It's fun to do it, to be able to think back on your own experiences and how it applies here in the module.
I'm really happy to hear this.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, it's not easy. No one pretends that this is the easy thing, right? But if we wouldn't have bothered to do this. I wouldn't have put up my hands to say that I'm teaching this module, if not for the fact that I really do believe that this is something that will benefit our students. We make sure we help them as much as possible so that they are eased into it, so that they encounter accessible material, and so that they will go on to do more things with this. They're going to go back to their various majors. I don't expect the majority of you to change your major. I'll be a little bit scared actually if that happens. Throw all logistics off, But you're going to go back to psychology. You're going to go back to the social sciences, to life sciences, to physics, and that's okay. I actually do think that that's the correct thing to do. But I hope that you have gone back and you'll come out of this whole process a fuller person, or a more well-rounded person. Maybe we can close with this last question. How do the two of you intend to maximize your time in CHS? You got 4 years ahead of you. Well, 3 3/4 years ahead of you.
Sure. I think just to harp back on what I said before, it's just, I think the 4 years of uni is a good way for me to just enjoy learning as a whole. Yeah, and it's just for me to take in as much info as I can, and just help me to broaden my horizons as much as possible. So I can emerge as a more well-rounded graduate, right? Yeah. Also, I think the interdisciplinary modules they're pretty good because it helps me to understand other fields of study and also appreciate it, so I don't really get so fixated on what I'm doing in the life sciences. I can know that there's other stuff happening also.
Are you intending to take out a minor? I think you mentioned that you want to take out a forensic science minor, right?
Yeah. So it's all part of the learning experience. I'm just here to really just learn and absorb as much as I can. Yeah.
I think I would want to do the same as Yi Hao. Really just enjoy my time here, because I saw the courses. There's a reason why I chose NUS, and the courses look fun, the modules look fun. So yeah, there's very little space for you to choose in secondary school and JC. All the subjects are just being given to you. You can choose which subject combi you want to take, but the content of the subjects are just thrown at you and you have no choice but to learn them. Whereas in university, you can choose what you want to specialize in, what you're interested in, and all that. And you can even minor in 2 different minors if you want to. And the workload's not going to be too bad, even if you want to take on double major or 2 minors, kind of thing. You still get to have the fun of learning. And I think that's what really drew me to NUS. And now I think that's the appeal of CHS now, that you get to also look at minors from a different faculty.
Yes, well said. And definitely use the space, 2 minors, learn languages, do other things. So definitely there are a lot of opportunities in NUS. NUS is a very impressive university when it comes to opportunities for students. I live here. Every day I walk through Utah. Nick will know this. Sometimes I will ask myself, why didn't they build all this when I was a student? Okay, so the kinds of opportunities you have are really, really very, very amazing. So make use of it. My other advice is don't be formal. Don't try to do everything. Because I do encounter a lot of students who try to do too much. Right? Prioritize and enjoy your learning. Nick, you have anything to say or not?
Well, I think I would have loved CHS myself, right? If I was born I should not reveal my age, but if I was born later, right, I think I would have really appreciated this opportunity, because as I shared with the both of you, in fact, all my classes, I was from the science stream, right? Wanted to major in physics, ended up majoring in philosophy. I might have done, both philosophy and physics if I had the chance. But more than that, I think that CHS represents this, and I hope it's not just an exercise in name, right? And I really strongly believe that it's not. And the point really is to maybe blur the boundaries a little bit, right? Help you to see outside of your chosen specialties, your chosen disciplines, and learn something from across the aisle, right? Yeah.
Because we do believe that in an interesting and weird way, maybe not in a way that is expected, it will make you better at what you do in your own discipline, not in the classes. It's not so straightforward like that. It will make you a better graduate, a better informed citizen. Thanks for being with us, and I hope that your classmates, if they get to hear this, they'll be more reassured, challenged, and that we'll continue to enjoy our time in this module.